Hello, Narnach here. Welcome back to Path of Exile. We are playing in the Harbinger League for the fall of Oriath. And this is the end of Act 7 after defeating Arakali. I forgot to speak with a couple of the folks in town. So we're gonna do that. After that we're gonna go head over to Act 8, speak with all the folks in town. And after we're done with all the lore conversations, that's gonna be the end of this episode. The next episode we're gonna start our gameplay of Act 8. So, let's go.
Many an artist of Asmerian descent has engaged in the sad worship of that sultry arachnid. But you looked in those hypnotic eyes and then ripped them out. She lies in her bed of sordid memory, alone. A little of the spider yet creeps and crawls in my palm. A touch more power for my subduer of gods?
This is the same dialogue as we had at the end of when Sin descended in the arena.
Who there?
Willem has nothing to say. Eremir.
There is so much yet to be learned.
There's two unheard of dialogue, so let's wrap that up.
Poor Silk. Like so many before him, Silk succumbed to a most insidious disease. Ambition, that craving for greatness, an irresistible compulsion to leave one's mark on the world. There's another name for marks like that. Scars.
It's at this point slowly becoming more difficult to see or to remember what have I seen already in this playthrough and what do I still remember from the beta. But
is the beginning of death.
Might be that there's an issue remembering the specifics of what we've listened to already.
While they were highly advanced in their technology, the Val were rather brutish in their social practices. I find it rather baffling to think of the Val as a people who believed in science and progress, and yet constructed elaborate sacrificial altars in the centers of their cities. Judging by the construction of this particular ruin, I would say that the city rose to prominence during the reign of Queen Tetzlapokal, who some scholars refer to as a waif of disturbing proclivities. She was a devotee of Arakali, and according to the literature had a deep fascination with mortality and the inert human form. The histories tell how the queen would request her subjects to deposit the bodies of their deceased loved ones upon the steps of her palace. The corpses would be promptly taken inside to be used for... Unfortunately, most scholars fell into hysterical conjecture at that point. At least I hope it was conjecture.
So that sounds less savory. What do you have to say about Silk?
I miss my friend. Silk knew the spirit as I did. We would talk, understand it, together. Now there is no one but me.
Poor Yina. Also the Fireflies is still listed here even though the quest is completed.
You have found the resting place of this Arakali? Good. The spirit tells me that we will not reach her. Not without help. Web she weaves with fibers of faith and fear. Too strong to break. Too strong to cut. Yet there is an Asmeri potion, most ancient. Fire dew. It might be enough to burn a path. Make way for us to pass into heart of spiderweb. I could brew it for you, but there is one ingredient I do not possess. The blazing blood of the firefly that lives in the most dreaded of thickets. Travel I shall to Arakali, to sit on her doorstep, until you bring me 7 flames that flit and fly. Then I make you a fire dew, and together we go talk to this bride of foolish Silk.
Okay, so this is indeed a bit of lore that we didn't really get before we got the quest. The timing of making this available was a bit odd, but it is interesting to see it afterwards nonetheless.
Greetings.
And Helena
Farewell.
has nothing to remark upon Arakali, so that is convenient. Time for Act 8. town, that is. So, we are back in Sarn. And Sin is the first one to greet us.
Dodri Darktongue is the insidious infection that threatens to make septic the great and terrible wound that is Sarn. However, any certainty that I had as to her exact whereabouts has been sundered by the sheer stench of her presence. We shall have to deduce her location from those who know the area best. These locals that cling to Sarn like hungry maggots.
He's not pretty all that optimistic about the folk that live here. Let's see what he's got to say about Dodri Darktongue.
Dodri Darktongue is the insidious infection that threatens to make septic the great...
No, that is that bit. Figures. I only had one. You're not an NPC. Well, not a town NPC. Maramoa. How have you been?
Good to see you in San once again. I wish that we could be greeting under fairer skies, yet this city remains clouded in strife. Lunaris, eternal goddess of the moon, and her sister Solaris of the sun have risen to reclaim what was once their own. Siblings equal in strength, mighty twin rivers converging, sweeping all before them. We are cornered animals, awaiting the deluge that will surely drown us. Yet, there exists a pair of ancient treasures, the Sun Orb and the Moon Orb. They are our hope, our desperation.
So, what are you doing, Maramoa, to help your city? Yeah, you're standing here waiting for heroes. Yes, very heroic. Gregor.
Grigor is the butterfly that has lost its wings to a cruel child. And this place of respite has become a cage for his pain, a breeding ground of bad memory. We spoke, and Grigor shared his resolve with me. He can no longer live with the torment that piety has injected into his heart. Like the warrior poet he is, Grigor has ventured into the unknown to find a cure for his body and mind, or die in the attempt. The dead do not love the living, and the living cannot love the dead. People fear what they do not understand. I understand Clarissa. I am not frightened of her. I am frightened for her.
Yeah, Clarissa and Tolman. There's an interesting couple. We'll get back to them, because they're there.
They walked our earth in the times of great strife, cruel and hideous shadows, cast against the clay wall of ruined abode. Thaumaturge Malachi grew them out of the vain ambitions of his dark imaginings. Emperor Cheetus believed that the Legionnaires belonged to him, that all Gemling men would beat to the drum of his own crystalline heart. But as the silhouette of the Emperor faltered and fell, burned out by the light of true men, some of the Legion remained. The Catechism turned Legionnaire into monster, another mindless man of undeath. Yet this captain seems to have regained his faculties, some of his old warrior intelligence. I worry for the rest of his soldiers, how they may grow from mindless killing machines into something far worse.
We're good at stopping killing machines. So the Gemling Legionnaires, they are back. Because remember, they used to spawn in the warehouse back in Act 3. But in 3.0, the warehouse got removed. And, well, guess what? In Act 8, we get ourselves a warehouse with Gemling Legionnaires as a guaranteed spawn, driven by a quest rather than an optional spawn that we sometimes got. Hagen, let's see what kind of bargain we can get from you.
Good to see you're still soldiering on. With all these gods in past horrors wandering around Sarn, I don't assume anyone's alive and kicking these days. If Sarn wasn't mad enough, now we've got some whip-tongued hag cooking up a stinking curse in the sewers. Took it from her mother-in-law at first. But no, based on my meagre historical knowledge, I reckon we have a certain Dodri Darktongue to contend with. Where in blazes is she hiding? I've no idea. So, the only way we're going to catch this witch is by getting our hands, and possibly a lot more, well and truly dirty. And by we, I mean you, of course. The sewers are no place for a simple businessman like me. Do us a favour. Head into them sewers and track that old hag down. Get her to reveal herself, and put her down. Ha! Better your eyes than mine, eh?
Yeah, wheeling and dealing Hargan. Always makes it interesting though, so we'll indulge him.
Quite the pretty pair, aren't they? Yeah, it's pretty bloody disturbing. That girl was once the sweetest lass I could name. Nowadays she's barking as batshite over that living corpse of hers. All it would take is a quick hard bash with a rock, and Tolman would no longer be a problem. Tempting, don't you think?
Solaris and Lunaris.
Needing my eclectic expertise again, are we? Solaris and Lunaris got front and centre stage among them folks at the Eternal Empire. Solaris was thought to be the light of leadership, guiding and enlightening each emperor that sat the throne. In practice, most of them emperors turned out to be a bit dim, but then history and theology have never quite seen eye to eye. As for Lunaris, a goddess of the moon and earth, the mother of dreams and inspiration. Doesn't sound like a bad lady until you consider that dreams harbour nightmares, and that inspiration is just one notion shy of insanity.
It's always interesting how you can spin things.
Grigor left without a single word to me, rude bugger. But I suspect his poetic soul has been drawn back home to Izmir. A long journey, but a trip worth taking to find solace among one's own people. Of course, they'll get quite the shock when they see him. Let's hope familial love is as nearsighted as they say. There are the fine tales Grigor will be able to tell them, of course. Come to think of it, now that Dominus has been knocked off his perch, there's nothing to stop the Izamites from learning a thing or two from Grigor's stories. They might even consider invading this jewel and raid-class tarnished crown. I certainly hope they have just such an eye for opportunity. A man could make a tidy sum helping said invaders navigate Sarn and its many hazards.
Hargan is an opportunist, but that last bit about the Ezamites possibly invading, I wonder if this is some foreshadowing for what's to come after the current story arc with the gods is done. Know what we would see for Path of Exile 4.0. So nothing new got triggered here, so let's have a chat over there with Clarissa and lovely little bound Tolman over there.
Sarn is changing, and so are we who live here. There, Tolman. Don't you worry. I love you. I'll think of something. You told me Tolman was gone. You were wrong. I found him. No, Tolman, I never gave up on you. His soul remains, flickering deep down inside. Oh, Tolman, I know you're in pain, but it'll be over soon, I promise.
I'm wondering here, is she not picking up on some visible cues, or is it just all imaginary, the feedback? Because it almost sounds like he's like a voice inside of her head that she's responding to. It's definitely odd.
My heart aches for Grigor. I know the battle in which he's engaged. It's like my own, a fight to make sense of life in a land that deems life to be worthless. I don't know where he's gone, but I do know he's looking to find himself, his true self, as we all must do in our own time. By all accounts, Tarkus Veruso was a ruthless despot, a man to rival even the likes of Dominus. Yet his heart of stone contained one precious theme, his love for his wife, Kiara. So when the poor young woman died giving birth to Veruso's son, Caspero, the grieving emperor threw aside his great convictions and placed his last hope in thaumaturgy, in the Ankh of eternity. Perhaps it was shame that drove Tarkus to lock the Ankh away, to steal such hopes from his descendants. It was he who had asked his people to turn their backs on the ancient arts. So what right had he to enjoy that which he forbade? Love gave him that right.
Ah yes, the Ankh of Eternity.
As I understand it, the Ankh of Eternity was somehow able to return the dead to the full bloom of life. There was nothing necromantic about it. Rather, it was a source of true resurrection. How it came to exist, I honestly don't know. A couple of inscriptions I read treated the Ankh as some sort of gift to Veruso from the Val. But surely the Val were long gone by Veruso's time, weren't they? No matter. Despite the vagaries of the Ankh's origins, Veruso used the Ankh to return his young wife from the deathbed to the wedding bed. The accounts are unanimous on that point. As it was for Veruso's love, so shall it be for mine.
Okay. It's interesting. We don't get a quest for this yet, though we know she wants it. Ooh, we got some lore on Sun and Moon.
If we are to see the dawn of a new era for humankind, the sun must be taught to behave herself. Upon that mighty span between San's left hand and its right, Solaris burns to consume every single moment of existence. Sparing no thought for life and its needs, she would see the world parched barren before she yields to reason. The sun must be allowed to set, so that it may rise again as a blessing, not a curse. A mother's keen heart shall bleed into the dreams of her daughter.
Okay, that is the wrong vocal line for the text. I did read on Reddit that there were issues with the lore texts, and no, some in Act 8 but also Act 9 and 10, that there was a patch upcoming where things like that would be fixed and where more voice acting would be added, but unfortunately this line is already weird. So having the one text and then the other vocals is going to be confusing, so for now we'll skip it. Let's go with the next one.
In the Marraketh Desert, an oasis lies to the east.
Again, wrecked.
It is not something I deign to speak of often, but...
Okay, so we're gonna have to get back to that one. Or, you know what? Let's mute the dialogue. And let's go back to some impromptu voice acting by yours truly. Not as good as the Sin, of course, but, well, in the absence of the real thing, substituted with something approximating it. Self-loving Solaris. All the light in the world, yet blinded by her own pride. Not once did she pause to question the truth of her sister's betrayal. Instead, she gloated over her sister's transgressions, proclaiming herself greater and more honorable than Lunaris could ever be. I suppose one shouldn't be surprised when a sun deity takes the higher ground. Wasn't this already working in the beta? Correctly, that is. Eternal Moon. We approach the zenith of our divine hunt, upon the bridge that chokes the great wet throat of Sarn. Lunaris, in a cold fury, has forgotten that the warming sun of morning is as life-giving as the cooling damp of evening. The empire Lunaris dreams of shall be lit by moon and twinkling stars, and life itself shall wither away in that perpetual night. One of the two sisters who ruled the most populous and powerful of the ancient Asmerian tribes, Solaris, was thought to guide the sun across the sky with threads of shimmering gold, whilst Lunaris sought the wax and wane of a moon with a sickle of purest silver. It was a peaceful partnership until the trickster, Tangmazu, happened upon their domain. In turning sister against sister, he saw to the massacre of thousands, whilst concealing the source of their futile feud beyond all reckoning. Feel no pity for the moon. That was too fast. Feel no pity for the moon. She is a cold and distant fool, far less radiant than she would suppose. What? So we can turn this one back on. And then have a chat with Marmoa. Nothing new. Hagen.
Come over here.
I seem to remember him talking about the Ankh of Eternity, but it might be that we have to deal with Doedre Darktongue first. Because Doedre is gonna be the very first thing we're gonna go after. After that, paths are gonna branch. The Ankh of Eternity quests of lovely little Clarissa over there was a little underwhelming and or possibly bugged in the beta, so I definitely hope that got improved. But there's only one way to find out, and that is by actually playing the game. So for now, I'm gonna thank you very much for watching, and I hope to see you again next time when we face Doedre Darktongue. Bye bye.